Everyone's we had quite a happy day. We went and had a big lunch.
There's something about putting something into words that that just gets to you. I don't know why that is.
And everything was surprisingly normal. And
that just suddenly got to me, and I just couldn't continue.
He's ventured where few dare to go, deep into the murkiest rivers, chasing creatures born from nightmare and legend. Jeremy Wade didn't just film a show, he lived every second of it. From remote jungles to flooded basins, his journey on river monsters captured the imagination of millions. But how much do you really know about the man behind the camera? What drove him into the wild? And what did it cost him? This is the untold story of risk, obsession, and what happens when the mission becomes more dangerous than anyone imagined. The dangerous life behind the lens. What you saw on screen was thrilling. What you didn't see was terrifying. Jeremy Wade's journey through the world's most dangerous waters wasn't scripted for drama. It was real. Every time he waded into a murky river, the danger was unpredictable, and the consequences were often severe. To fans, River Monsters was a gripping adventure series. But to Wade, it was a life of risk, calculated yet deadly. In the Amazon, he once attempted to net an arapaima, one of the largest freshwater fish in the world. Weighing around 80 pounds, the fish didn't just thrash. It launched itself straight into Wade's chest. The impact was brutal. For 6 weeks, he felt pain in his sternum and feared internal injury, particularly to his heart. And in the middle of the rainforest, there were no ambulances, no quick checkups, just pain and patience. Another haunting experience came during an encounter with the electric eel in South America. These creatures may look unassuming, but their electrical shock can deliver up to 500 volts. That's enough to paralyze a person and lead to drowning, even in shallow water. To protect himself, Wade wore rubber gloves and boots and brought a defibrillator, because even one mistake could mean cardiac arrest. These weren't just television moments, they were brushes with death. Each trip, each episode meant putting his life on the line, not knowing if he'd return home. Behind every successful catch was hours of fear, pain, and the constant knowledge that one wrong move could be his last. But those weren't even the worst moments, because what happened next nearly ended everything. Surviving the Amazon plane crash. This wasn't part of the show. This was real life, and it almost ended midair. In 2002, long before River Monsters made him a household name, Jeremy Wade was deep in the Amazon, filming aerial shots for an upcoming wildlife segment. He and 4 others boarded a small single-engine plane to capture footage from above: lush rainforest, winding rivers, untouched wilderness. But somewhere over the dense jungle, the engine gave out. There was no panic, just a sickening silence and the terrifying realization that they were going down. Most plane crashes in the Amazon don't have survivors. The trees are dense, the terrain unforgiving, and rescue is rarely swift. But in a split-second decision, the pilot aimed for the only chance they had: a massive rubber tree. He stalled the aircraft directly into its crown. The rubber tree absorbed the blow like a cushion. The plane crumpled, but miraculously everyone on board walked away. They emerged into chest-deep water, stunned but alive, surrounded by miles of remote jungle. Jeremy later described it as the closest brush with death that never made it on film. But it stayed with him. Long after the bruises faded, the experience haunted him, not just for how close they came to dying, but for what it revealed. How fragile life really is when you're constantly chasing danger. That day shifted something inside him. It wasn't the physical injury that lingered, it was the silent question. How much more of this could he endure? But rest wasn't in the cards just yet. Because soon after surviving a crash that should have killed him, Jeremy Wade found himself in a nightmare of a different kind. This time, surrounded by walls, bars, and suspicion. Little did Jeremy know his next trip would land him not in danger, but in a prison cell. Accused of spying in Thailand. He went to fish. He ended up in handcuffs. In 1984, Jeremy Wade wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't followed by a camera crew or backed by a production budget. He was just a young biologist with a backpack, a fishing rod, and an insatiable curiosity about the world's most mysterious waters. That curiosity led him to Southeast Asia, where the mighty Mekong River promised adventure and untold aquatic life. But in the political climate of the time, a lone foreigner snooping around remote rivers raised red flags. Thai authorities became suspicious. Who was this man wandering into restricted areas with strange equipment and a camera? The conclusion they reached, however unfounded, was chilling. Jeremy Wade was arrested under suspicion of being a spy. Thrown into a local jail, with no translator, no lawyer, and no idea what would happen next, Wade found himself in one of the most terrifying situations of his life. There were no formal charges, no clear answers, just fear. He was interrogated and held like a criminal, all for wanting to catch fish. The ordeal didn't last months, but it lasted long enough to leave a permanent mark. It wasn't quite a Midnight Express situation, Wade would later say, but it was scary. The emotional toll ran deep. It taught him that his chosen path, remote travel, solo expeditions, and chasing legends, came with invisible dangers. Sometimes the threat wasn't in the water. It was in the misunderstanding, the isolation, the powerlessness. That experience didn't stop him, but it changed him. From then on, every trip carried a heavier sense of risk. Every river crossing came with a second thought. His brush with foreign imprisonment was just one of many reminders. What he did wasn't entertainment, it was survival. And sometimes, survival comes with unbearable pain. The mental and physical toll. What happens when your body breaks down, but the cameras keep rolling? Jeremy Wade might be a biologist by training, but on the rivers he operated more like a stuntman, survivalist, and soldier rolled into one. Over the 9 seasons of River Monsters, his body absorbed every ounce of punishment the wild could deliver, and then some. Fans admired his calm demeanor, but behind every smooth monologue was a man bruised, bloodied, and barely holding together. In one grueling shoot in Argentina, a small catfish stabbed him in the hand. Its spine, laced with a toxic slime, sank deep into his skin. His hand ballooned with swelling. Blood poured from the wound, but he refused to stop filming. He kept the cameras rolling, hiding the pain with a scientist's focus and a storyteller's resolve. Then there were the fishing hooks, more dangerous than people realized. Jeremy often worked in fast-moving waters with poor visibility and writhing predators in his hands. Once, while unhooking a small piranha, the fish thrashed and drove the barbed hook deep into Jeremy's own finger. The pain was sharp, but what made it worse was knowing he had to finish the scene. These moments weren't rare. They were constant. Every episode involved travel sickness, insect bites, sleepless nights, and unpredictable weather. But what wore him down more than anything else was the isolation. Jeremy spent months away from home, filming in remote jungles and riverside villages, often with no access to help, support, or even basic comfort. He was chasing a story, but sometimes it felt like the story was chasing him back. But his toughest battles weren't with fish. They were with loneliness, isolation, and the creeping realization that he was risking his life for a story. The silent fade and lasting scars. When the cameras stopped, Jeremy Wade didn't just fade from TV, he retreated from the world. After the 9th and final season of River Monsters, Jeremy didn't make a grand farewell. There were no headlines, no teary send-offs. He simply stepped away, leaving fans puzzled. Was he planning a spin-off? Was this a break? The silence only deepened the mystery. But according to those closest to the production, the truth was quietly heartbreaking. Jeremy was worn thin. Years of trekking through mosquito-ridden jungles, surviving lightning storms, near drownings, and relentless physical injuries had left lasting scars. His body, once so capable of hauling nets and holding his breath underwater, was beginning to protest. Old wounds ached longer. Sleep came harder. And mentally, the weight was even heavier. Insiders whispered of chronic fatigue, old injuries that hadn't fully healed, and a growing sense of emotional burnout. Jeremy was never one to complain, but in rare interviews, the cracks showed. He admitted to battling fear, not just in the moment, facing a wild creature, but the creeping kind. The kind that settles in your bones. The kind that whispers, "This can't go on forever." Fear, he once said, is what keeps you alive. But too much of it starts to eat away at you. And slowly, it had. The irony was cruel. The more risk Jeremy took, the more viewers loved him. Each brush with death became another legendary episode. But behind the scenes, the toll was quiet and personal. There was no applause after the camera cut, just exhaustion. So he disappeared, not to chase another monster, but to protect what was left of himself. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop fighting. Jeremy Wade showed us monsters, but faced far greater ones behind the scenes. His story is a reminder that true survival doesn't always happen in front of the camera. What part of Jeremy's journey surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories that reveal the truth behind the legends, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Watch the next video on your screen. It's another behind-the-scenes story you won't want to miss.